Welcome, everybody. This is Debbie Levitt from Delta CX, and it is our Tuesday Q&A AMA, where you can ask anything, and I am here to answer your questions live, though we do have a special guest this week, rescheduled from last week. And before we get started, I always love to, hey, Ana Lucia, I always love to thank our paid Patreon members. This list is just growing and growing, and thank you all so much for being a part of the Patreon. We've also got over 200 members now. About 1/3 are paid, so you can absolutely join our Patreon for free, and you will still be the first to know stuff. You'll get some cool discounts and other perks, so check it out at patreon.com/cxcc. All right, that having been said, let's bring in the king of fantasticness himself. Dr. Nick, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm definitely not the king of fantasticness, but I'll take it. Thank you very much. Hi, I'm Nick. You know me as the noisy guy on LinkedIn who's shouting all about UCD and the good old days of proper UX. I don't need to introduce myself more than that.
I remember, but now so much crying. Okay, so for those of you who haven't been here before, just a reminder that you can ask your questions. Whoa. There's the crotch cam. You can ask your questions at deltacx.com/links. There's a way to ask your question anonymously if you'd like. We've got 5 questions already because you can send them in all week long. You can also ask them in the live chat where they will appear on the screen with your name. So probably don't poop on your job in the live chat. If you want to poop on your job, send it in through the anonymous question. And we have a spammer on Twitch, so we'll just take that off the screen. Sad. My husband's not here today to moderate that, so we'll just let that person fade into obscurity. All right, let's take a look at our first question, since we did get 5 questions ahead of time. This one to me sounds like something that I've heard that Spool is saying. So this one says, I see more and more articles about research strategy being the next big thing. And I don't really understand. Isn't it something that always should have been there? What are your principles for a decent research strategy? Dr. Nick, is research strategy the next big thing?
Pardon me, so my language. I'm a bit blown away by that one. I'm just like, what a spicy opener. Let's just get straight in and like take the kid gloves off. Let's rip open a can of truth and or rip the plaster right off this bad boy.
Why not?
Yeah, this is not the next big thing. It's a cornerstone of research. There's a lot of things in our world, okay? A lot of things, particularly on LinkedIn, from some of your favorite design influencers who are only discovering things about the practice of UX for the first time.
Great point.
It's new to them. So when you see people going, ooh, wow, here's the next big thing, it's because the light bulb has just gone on in their mind, but they happen to be 5-10 years late or whatever that point is, okay? So it's new to them, not new to anybody else, or not new to the establishment, should we say. So research strategy being the next big thing, I don't really understand. Isn't it somewhere? Isn't it something that should have always been there? Yes, your instinct, your feelings are correct. What are your principles for a decent research strategy? Well, there is no playbook on this. We're talking black and white. The research strategy is 100% contextual, depending upon the research objective that you have at hand. What research questions are you looking to address? What are you trying to find out? That informs the strategy. It would be crazy for me to say, here's a research strategy to do X, Y, and Z, not knowing anything about what you're trying to understand or learn. Debbie, do you want to jump in at this point with your graphic?
I just put up a graphic of like a just high level research process. Was that the one you were hoping for? Or did you want
no. Okay, well, what I can do is I can reference that because there are ways of doing things like Debbie is talking, but you have to apply that to the context or to the question, to what you're trying to understand. That's how you develop the strategy. It's pretty much that simple. Now, becoming a good strategist is usually about the experience of trying different strategies on different projects in different contexts with different users and different needs, blah, blah, blah. This is why seniority takes that level of experience, because you can't become a strategist without, you can't understand strategy or what your options are without having seen what works across a myriad of different kind of applications. So that was kind of a long answer. Have a strategy, develop a strategy, learn from that strategy, learn to pivot when things aren't working, learn what works in which context. I think that's it in a nutshell.
Yeah, love that. And Marjolaine said, hey, if companies just laid off their UXRs, then they discover this next big thing. Hell yeah. And Ana Lucia said, now in the next big thing's QA. Test your stuff before you ship it to make sure it has quality and the minimum requirements. Be blown away by the results. Yes, it's bad sarcasm, says Ana Lucia. Yeah, so again, this was something I saw coming out of Spool, but I don't know if someone else is saying this or if he's ripping off somebody else, or if this is just something going around LinkedIn that I'm missing because of all the people I've blocked by now. But and also we saw it in that terrible article that I ripped apart recently about the UX research reckoning, about how we haven't been doing enough of the right research, which was a giant gaslighting adventure if you ask me. But I'm definitely with Nick on this. I mean, to me, any research that doesn't have strategy is probably going to end up crap. It's going to be badly planned, it's going to be badly executed, badly analyzed and synthesized, and end up with no surprises there. Just oh yeah, it's exactly what we thought, we validated the thing. So I think that strategy. Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, I just realized, I was looking for a pen to write this down before I forget it, but I think this is coming from the product side of our world. Hello, Yoda. I think this is coming from the product side of our world, because it actually, what the thought that just came to me is, product folk are told by authors like Teresa and others that to do experimentation. Now, if you do experimentation without any kind of strategy behind it, it's just knee-jerk madness. And that's frankly what we're seeing across the board today. So
for sure.
I think they're working out that this random shit doesn't work, but I need to do some experimentation. Therefore, what happens if I put a research strategy behind my experimentation? And guess what? Yes, the magic happens, but they're learning it the hard way. And we know this stuff, and we've known it for a decade.
At least, yeah. So, so principles for a decent research strategy. Obviously, I want to understand what questions we're trying to answer. I think sometimes we don't take the time to do that, and that's why we've got our friend episode 196, where we talk about the knowledge quadrant, which is an exercise you can do to learn more about what your cross-functional team. I send my quadrants out at my current job to 38 people. I want to know what everybody at every level wishes they had answered in the next month or two, so I can work that into my research. So to me, that it starts with that strategy. What am I answering, and for whom, and why? And how can I make sure that I'm delivering the answers to those questions so that people understand the value of research? Because when we don't take the time to understand what people's open questions are, and we just go try to find out the small thing or validate the small thing, and later on people go, well, what was the point of that? We knew it was good. We thought it was good. And so I think there's a lot more to that strategy. And I really think, of course, now we need props. I can't help but recommend Larry's Disruptive Research book. Definitely a good strategic look at research and bringing what you learn from that research into design. The next question is super long, so I'm going to have to make the font really tiny, and I'm going to have to redo the story. So get your pen ready. Whoa, sorry for the small font, everybody. I'm on a huge TV and I can't read that, but here we go. Hi, Debbie. I'd like to hear your opinion on my situation. I've been working on a project from around a year now, and the team and the work is great. It's an internal tool, and much of the talks around new features, users and stakeholders' needs is done informally by the PO. He's been doing it since years. It's an ongoing project, and he knows everyone in the domain quite well. If I need to meet with users to understand their workflow or test a concept, it's usually no problem. What I struggle with is the following. Everything is not done in my mother tongue. I'm Italian and I'm living in Germany. And when I started the project, it was made clear that I was still learning and it was no problem for the PO or the team. In the meantime, my German has improved a lot and I can still follow and talk in most discussions. However, it's still imperfect, and often, especially in meetings with the PO and the users, they speak very fast or difficult, and sometimes I feel like I'm missing the nuances of the context and problem, or I find it difficult to ask follow-up questions on the go, which hinder my ability to perform good user research and dive deeper into problems and needs. Since the PO is often chatting with users, I've managed to remain more in the background and focus on interaction design. But I feel the project could benefit from better or more structured user research. But for that, I should probably be replaced by a new German designer and researcher. I fear that if I do so, I would be even more in the background and never improve doing research in German, but staying on my own, I feel guilty that it's not best for the project. Oh, I feel this one a lot, being an American in Italy.
Do you? Oh, yeah. In that case, you lead off on this one.
Yeah, so to the anonymous person who sent this, what a wonderful question that we've never had before, and thank you so much for this. This is definitely hard. I have made the decision, obviously, if you're living in Germany, chances are you're going to get jobs that require you to speak German at least some level. Sometimes that's just the German within the office, and sometimes it is going to be for the user research. I always suggest that user research be in the language that the users use. So like I once had someone tell me, oh, we need to speak with Chinese people. And I said, what language do you plan to speak? And they were like, English. And I said, newsflash. Yeah. So I definitely agree that the interactions with the users should be in the language that's most comfortable for them, the language that the system is in, probably German. I have avoided taking Italian jobs because I don't feel like my Italian is there. Now, in that sense, I apply for remote jobs in English-speaking places, and I managed to find one. You're living in Germany, you're looking for German jobs, and I think that the problem there is that if you're staying in Germany, so people are going to expect your German to be a much higher level. I would definitely, and it's great that your German's improving, and I'm sure it is. I would probably say do everything you can to really accelerate your German, because even if you switch jobs, you're probably going to run into the same thing where you need to speak with German users and your German's not as strong. So I would definitely find a teacher, find conversation groups, do everything you can to accelerate your German proficiency. German is definitely not easy. As someone coming from Italian, German has declensions that Italian doesn't have. German splits infinitives funny, what's the word I'm looking for? Prepositions funny in a way Italian doesn't. I know it's not an easy language to transition to. It's not like you're transitioning to French, which has an estimated 82% overlap with Italian. So I feel you. And Ana Lucia says, my heart breaks for this person. It sounds like they are a level-headed researcher that could benefit the product, and the language is a hindrance. Yes, I think so. And I understand that you're saying, what if we bring in another researcher, but then you're probably worried that they might feel like they don't need you. I'd probably be doing everything I could to accelerate my language skills. But yeah, I'd probably also be having a tough conversation, maybe with my manager, that, hey, we all knew my German was an intermediate level, and I'm trying to do these interviews, and I feel like my language isn't there. Is there someone I can partner with on these interviews? Or, find out what you can do. Nick, go ahead. I'm a little stuck here because my answer has been to avoid taking jobs in Italian because of self-awareness of my level.
Yeah, no, and everything. I don't disagree with anything you said, and that was similar to my answer. Only just on the basis of language and communication are critical for research. I mean, they just are. And he's so right about the nuances. Whoever this asker is. Use technology. There are live captions, maybe some cool AI live translation stuff that you can run that maybe your users aren't seeing on your screen. I know Zoom and some of the others are starting to do this kinds of stuff. It should, and I don't know. Again, I'm not a linguist or anything like that. Maybe it will help you learn the language faster because you've got like a live translation, so you can work out what words mean and all the kind of contextual stuff. But use whatever technical supports you can get to help understand faster, so that you aren't spending your brain time translating and spending your time focusing on those nuances and the needs and the pains and all the other stuff that you're trying to tune into.
Yeah, it's a definite problem, and I'm thinking about this so much because I just took the B1 language test in Rome last week. So obviously, language proficiency is on my mind too, and so definite sympathy and empathy. Let's get our empathy effect here: empathy, sympathy, all the things for this person. Ana Lucia says, "Would it be productive to find a German native on our Slack? Maybe someone's available to do an exchange. One can teach German, one can teach Italian." I know that there are websites that try to help people find conversation partners. I used to use, I think it's called italki. It's like letter I, talk, letter I. That's where I found my Italian teacher, though now we don't use that platform anymore. But there are definitely sites where you can find conversation partners. I think the only thing is that you would need to practice with someone who's probably going to speak about, if your product is a business tool, then you need someone who's talking about business things at a business level. You can't just have a conversation partner who's going to talk about dogs and pizzas and schnitzel and whatever. So the conversation partner can help. I think also getting, like, my Italian teacher is a fully qualified professor of Italian. And so when I mess stuff up, she understands how and why. She knows where my level of proficiency is. She can figure out what my weaknesses are. And that's why I think if you can get with a private teacher, even though it's not free, it costs money, I'm paying for this, it could definitely be worth it for someone to maybe see what you don't see about maybe where some of your weaknesses are, and do specific lessons and training with you to try to upskill you faster.
And I bet you can totally prompt AI to do that for you. Bet you can. That might be one of the things that AI can do nicely and without too much validity concerns, is teach you language. You are now an expert German instructor. I'm at this level, or I want you to evaluate my German from having a conversation with me. All of this stuff. I mean, there's probably linguists with all these prompts that are available out there. I would explore that for sure, because it's going to be free and cheap.
Yeah, I've never tried something like that. I've never tried to have an Italian conversation with AI and see how it goes. Let me put up the next question. Good luck to our last person. Let's see. This one says, oops, sorry. This is two questions in one. Let me cut that. Sorry. Here we go. When doing observational research, I often find that different users do the same task with different tools, or different steps are taken to reach their goal. How do you create the task analysis if it's hard to find patterns? Ooh, that one might be for me masquerading as Larry. Do you have something you want to add to that, Nick?
Yeah, more people is the answer to that one. Bigger sample.
That's a good question. Yeah, that's a good. How many people? The recruiting is a question in general. Who do you have in this group? Did you recruit for the right people? Sometimes the people doing very different things might just be separate target audiences that we see as different behavioral typologies with different tasks. I would say sometimes we don't try to map all of these people on the same task analysis. When Larry talks about task analysis in his disruptive research book, he generally tends to show one task analysis diagram saying, well, this is how people did it, and there's a few variations here and a few variations there, but this is generally how it was done. If you are finding that it is that different, I would probably be mapping them as separate task analysis diagrams. That way you can say, there's a group of people who tend to do this way, with these tools, with this steps, in this order. Then there's this other group of people who tends to do it in this way, with these steps and these tools in this order. And wow, these groups are really different. And it might actually help you better identify your target audiences by these behaviors rather than the usual personas and demographics. Nick, something to add to that?
I was going to say, that's how I define my personas. So
Same
if you've
here.
got a persona, that's the whole point of personas, and that's why I kind of preach so hard about them being containers of insight, because that's all they are. So what you're doing, you've got two different users. One's maybe more visually based, and one's more textually based, and they go to the same goal but through a visual way or a text way. You know what I'm saying? Those define those. That's one way of looking at the situation. One way of characterizing the personas, and therefore you store the needs and the pains in there, because that's what the designer is going to get. That's what they're going to use. That's what's actually useful. That's what you design from. That's the value, and that's research into design, and that's UX, real UX.
Thank you. Yeah. So, what else can we add to that? Yeah. So, separate
If you can't
diagrams.
find a pattern,
Yeah.
if you can't find a pattern, you keep going, bigger sample, and then start looking back at the data and look how you can say, right, if it's not very decisive, it's not very clear, try like segmenting by persona, for example, right? Then you might get absolute clarity, and that would explain why there is such a polar difference in your data. Do you see what I mean? Why there's, you know what I mean? It's like you're trying to reconcile two things in one group that you can't do. So create two groups, and then it all works.
Yeah,
So more
when
people.
when we mapped something for a client a few years ago, the differences we found was that in general, people tended to do the same thing in the same order, but some of their tools were different. And so we used the task analysis diagram to say, well, at this point, people retouched their photos. Okay, some of them did it on their phone, some of them did it on a computer. They had different tools, and it was easy to map that out with Larry's task analysis style, but that still implied that it was generally the same process in generally the same order. So I think if you're seeing stuff that's this different, separate task analysis diagrams. Great question. All right, this was the rest of this. This was a different question that I accidentally thought was the same question. Here we go. When I am preparing prototypes, I tend to spend a lot of time making sure that there are alternative paths to do the thing I want to test, and that certain things around it works as in reality as possible, like using branching and variables to make sure everything more smoothly connected. I'm a bit worried it's maybe a waste of time, like it makes the prototype more reliable during user testing, the user's more likely to be able to do what they want, but might it also happen that the user just do the happy path and taking time to build a more complex prototype was wasted time? What are your thoughts on this? Ooh, I have thoughts on this. Nick, you first.
Yeah, we've all got thoughts on this, but this is a good one. This is a great one. I haven't kind of spoken on this for a while, so thanks for the prompt, if you know what I mean. There is an optimal level of what I call functional fidelity in a prototype. No one else calls it that. It's just a word that I've come to call it, because when people talk about fidelity, they often talk in terms of high and low fidelity, in terms of, is it high definition
design,
or
the
black
branding.
and white? Yeah. So I call it functional fidelity because we're talking about interactive features, which is what you're describing here, right? So there is a Goldilocks amount of functionality. Now, if I assume we're talking about Axure, because nothing else really does what you're saying. So, because you're talking about branching this and variables and stuff.
Variables,
right?
yeah.
So we're pretty much nailed on Axure. Great, brilliant, love it. But there is kind of toxic Axure use or boiling the ocean Axure use, where you're overcooking this in a big way, doing exactly what you're saying, making a beautiful, incredible, seamless open sandbox with every error message, every condition, every drop down, every variable, everything. The only problem with that is you've just built the application effectively in Axure. That comes with a number of major problems. Number one, revising it is a pain in the neck, especially in Axure, especially if you're doing like nested dynamic tables, or you've got to recalculate all your global variables. It becomes a monster pain in the bum. Okay, so unless you've mastered everything, which most people don't, and labeled everything perfectly, it can be a bit of a shenanigan. In fact, it's a lot of a shenanigan, right? So you've got the Goldilocks amount of functional fidelity. Too little is it doesn't work, because the user, you might as well have a Figma prototype asking people, what would you do? You're not seeing real behavior. Too much, and you've built the thing and wasted so much time. So what you really need to do is get to experience will teach you this. I or Debbie or no one can tell you what this looks like. but you'll get a real sense for what is, when I say the MVP, that's going to be really interpreted wrongly, but what's the minimal amount of interaction design that I can do to make the journeys that I'm testing pretty much work. Okay, it doesn't have to be 100% brilliant. It can be 80% brilliant, and in testing, the researcher will be more than happy to work around it if it's not too major a deal. It's not, what would you do if you clicked on that mystery button over there? You know, if it's just, oh yeah, that bit doesn't work, or that drop list has only got 2 items, please choose the top one. Easy stuff. Okay, it's not do you understand what I'm trying to describe to you? I'm just trying to describe to you journeys that have got that flexibility and that ability to go up, down, and around, and go wrong and fail and explore, but without building out the whole thing. And that's a critical skill in the UX's toolbox. Critical. If you don't do it, you'll boil the ocean, and if you don't do it, you'll create some kind of Figma-like crap. That's all I got for you.
Totally agree. And we're facing this at my job right now, where our wonderful designer taught herself Acture and has made possibly the most incredible prototype I've ever seen. And but it doesn't do everything, and that's okay. You know, it takes into account the happy path and a couple of things that people are likely to try to do. But there are some times when I'm doing the evaluative studies and the moderated sessions where I have to say to people, oh yeah, sorry, clicking on that actually doesn't do anything, or yeah, you can click save, but then it's not going to show up later, and that's okay. It's still been good enough for us to test, even though not every button works, not every accordion works, not everything does everything. And so we just prepare people ahead of time, and we say, look, this is a prototype, and that means some things won't work well, some things won't work at all. And so sometimes people will, if I see people trying to click on something that I know doesn't totally work, I'll just say, oh, what did you expect that to do? Or if I see them clicking on the save button and I know the save button doesn't work, like we have a button that says move, and once you click where you want to move it, nothing happens. And that's because she didn't build that out. And you know what? It's fine, because we were wondering, can people even find the move choice from all the other things that are going on the screen? So to us, it was a task success, just that they found move and explored it, and we know that they would have, if the prototype did, it would have been fine. So you have to ask yourself, and I always tell people, like, how much of Acture can you cheese out? You know, how much of it can you fake out with just some dynamic panels that make it look like something happened when it didn't necessarily happen? And so I would say find that happy medium. You might be overworking on your prototype, and so yeah, I'm not sure I can add too much to what Nick said, other than happy path for sure, a couple of possible other things. Sometimes we include some error messages or warnings to see how people react to them. Do they understand the error or the warning, and how to get out of it? But I'm not going to make the prototype do every possible thing. Nick?
Yeah, that's such a good point. Let me just riff on that for a sec. Most of these prototypes we're talking about, we're talking like in this assumption that you go away, you build the prototype, and then you test it. Well, that's true, but in reality, this is going to happen across multiple sprints. So the first sprint might just be setting up the journey, right? And getting some basic stuff in and testing some stuff around that. And then the next sprint, I'm testing a particular function on that journey or feature of that journey, or I'm testing content and messaging or error messages. And so what I'm doing is I'm incrementally building up this prototype sprint on sprint. Right? That's really important, and that's what happens in the real world, or that's what should happen in the real world. What actually happens is, you probably, if you get a chance to prototype, there's a one-shot deal and there's a one-shot kind of research thing, and if you miss it, it's gone, and that's not great. What we really need is a cycle, and so that cycle, when it's in sprints, gives you that opportunity to iterate and to build. So the pressure isn't on you to build this fantastic, full-featured thing. But at sprint 20, that's what you're going to have, but you shouldn't expect to have it on sprint 1, right? You build up to it, and you've got different research questions, different research strategy guiding all of this, to reference what we talked about earlier. And you can execute that across your sprint planning, right? And then you can say, right, this sprint, we're doing error messages. Done. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and we don't work in sprints where I am, but your point still stands, and ours has certainly been an iterative process. We just finished our third study on this thing, and we're now planning our fourth, and we'll have our fifth done as well by the end of June. But every time we do it, the designer builds out more things, new things, and we get to evaluate and test them and learn a lot for all of our cross-functional teammates and stakeholders. But yeah, the prototype just can't do every possible thing in every possible combination. Like, we recognize that the last prototype we showed, because I work at Arizona State University, the prototype made more sense to campus students than it made to online students. And because the online students do things slightly differently. But all of them looked at it and said, oh, okay, I see that this is probably more for a campus student. I would expect my information to be over here instead of over there. Okay, but I get it. And so but the stakeholders just requested that the designer for the next test make two versions of the prototype, one that looks more like an online student's thing and one that looks more like a campus student's thing, so that they see something that feels more realistic. But again, we're iterating on that, and that wasn't the way this used to look. And so each time we're going deeper into features and functions and ideas, and some things work and some things don't. But yeah, I would say don't build just the happy path that's too happy. And as Nick said, it's very Figma-y, but you don't have to make it do abso-smurfly everything. You're going to, and as Nick said, then it'll be harder to update and change and improve as you go, because you have so many other things that are the butterfly effect from that.
And you know what? I actually pitched to Victor at Azure, CEO Victor of Azure. I pitched to him Azure Lite, specifically to appeal to the Figma crew, specifically to be able to achieve an optimal level of functional fidelity, take away all the or obscure all the unnecessary stuff that people don't or won't need or use, and then reskin it in a way that looks more Figma-like and is more better UX for designers, so that people can iterate it faster. And no,
he doesn't care.
They didn't want to know, and I'm sorry.
He doesn't care.
Yeah, but I'm so right on this, and it's
but we're
ridiculous.
also like 6 years late with this. Like, this is something he should have done when Sketch came out. Like, he doesn't care. So to me, Axure is going to be the best Axure it can be until someone else eats its lunch and we all move on.
Yeah, I keep waiting for Figma to up its game, and it's taking forever. I mean, there was a while back when we...
Figma sees how hard it is to learn Axure, and they don't want to be that. They want to be the tool that you can open up and start using immediately or in the first few hours. Axure, you open up and you don't even know where to start. It's not clear. It's not intuitive. It takes training. I've got hours of free training on the YouTube channel if anybody wants to learn Axure. But it's not that. And I think Figma doesn't want to become Axure in that sense.
No, and it doesn't. It really doesn't. But I mean, and I'm just thinking off the top of my head, this probably isn't right, but you'll understand what I'm trying to say. If I was like the Figma product manager and I wanted to take a chunk out of Azure's market and to just make better prototyping, all we have to do is add things like variables and dynamic panels, and basically a library of widgets and some bits and pieces. That's kind of it. Everything else is drag and drop, image map.
People are really heavily using repeaters and conditional logic, and there's a lot. I think there's a lot more. But hypothetically, you're talking about Axure Lite. Figma could do Figma extra bold. You know, here's regular Figma for all of you who are more in the UI or product design bucket, and then here's Figma extra bold for the Debbie, Nick, Darren, whoever else bucket.
Yeah, I'd love that. I'm completely agnostic. Whichever tool provider provides it for me is the one that I'll go for.
That's how I feel. Like, I'm very happy with Axure for now, but when someone else eats their lunch and I can do everything that Axure could do as well as or better, I'm not loyal. I'll move.
Yeah.
So whenever that happens. Here's the last question that we got. So if people want to ask questions, please ask. We've got time. deltacx.com/links. We have time for a few more questions today after this one. So join on in. This question says, what is the best way to observe users' expectations and understanding towards how a flow should work? More details on the concept I'm working on. The user clicks on a button to move the status of something forward. Until now, that's how it worked. But now when the user moves between a certain status, they'll be required to provide a value. Both the status and the value are in an Excel file. For technical reasons, we can't provide the opportunity to just upload the Excel file. We're thinking to show a pop-up after the user clicks the button for the next status and ask for this value. However, until now, as soon as the button is clicked, the status was changed. But now if the user clicks the button and sees the pop-up and then it closes it or ignores it, the status would be moved back. How can I observe whether this is clear for the user in a usability test? Oh, I already have there's so much I want to say. I'm dying. I cannot just say to them to change the status and close the pop-up. But if I just ask them to change the status of some items, they might not think to close the pop-up because they think they're in a fake situation, and I just gave them to change the status. Oh, I have so much I want to say here. Nick, you first.
So much. Well, I've got some pre-questions before we kind of get into this. Really, like you had this pattern of changing status and pressing a button and moving it forward, and then for some reason, and the reason I want to understand is, why do we have to have this value interrupting this pattern?
Agree.
Why? Where's that coming from? Right? Why are we breaking things? Is it for a really good reason? Is it a new regulation? Is it the PM just had a dream about it? Or
if we know that people are going to want to close this without putting in the value, why are we making them put in the value?
It's blowing the whole so everything else from there is like, that's easy from there. But that we answered that question and we get to the heart of this problem. That's where I'm at with this, you know. As a designer, researcher, UX person, you really do need to query where this is coming from and why you're doing it, because all of the thinking that's coming after it is potentially moot, right? There are probably other solutions. This is almost like a strategic issue. Why are you solving this problem this way is the question that I'm asking. You know, I don't necessarily think this is the best solution to the problem when it's going to cause such upheaval in terms of assumed interaction design. And importantly, and that your big fear or behind this is we're changing a status. That's quite a big deal, because if people aren't aware that the status has changed, the status doesn't change, and that's a big deal. So okay, let me just cut to the chase with regards to how can I observe whether this is clear in a usability test. You do this interrupted pattern thing, right? You then ask them, what is the status? They should be able to tell you the accurate status within a millisecond. There should be no delay. It should just come straight forward. If what comes forward isn't correct, obviously the state of the machine, i.e. the expected status of that you just set to, is not what they've expected, i.e. they're stuck on this contextual item which is asking for a value, and they did something and it didn't change the status, or they did it and it did change the status. They should know that pretty damn quickly. You should be able to observe that. And you should be able to observe that take 10 people. You should know after 3 or 4 people quite quickly, but finish the 10. That's what I would do. But this is all a moot point.
Yeah, Ana Lucia says, I'm confused just from reading that. My guess would be users would also be confused during usability testing and generate frustration. Yeah, I think you can absolutely see this. I think you can say, if you have a prototype or a dev build and you say, you need to advance this to whatever, go
done or urgent,
and watch them not fill out the box, and then they might end up, as Ana Lucia said, confused. Like, wait a minute, I tried to change this to the next status and it didn't change it. And so I guess my question would be, why do we need this value when we didn't need it before? And can the value be optional? So for example, if changing the status now brings a pop-up or some sort of thing where it's asking for a value, then my question is, why can't and I'm not saying this is even the right interaction design since I don't love pop-ups, but why aren't we asking them to maybe change the status from a pull-down menu so that they can choose whichever status this needs to change to, because there's probably multiple options. Yes. So drop list with your status, optional box for this value, because it sounds like a lot of it sounds like a lot of people are going to see this pop up and close it without changing the value and think the status was changed. So why aren't we asking them for a status from a drop list and then the value as an optional thing? Because the way it sounds like someone's designed the pop up is, if you don't put a value in the thing, you can't change the status, and that doesn't sound clear at all. I wouldn't even take that to usability testing, because I think we all know it's going to fail. I would be changing the design first and making sure that people can change the status and that the value is optional, unless, as Nick said, there is some regulatory or compliance reason where you have to all of a sudden, out of nowhere, after all this time, get this value.
One of the things that I mentioned at conference probably 5 years ago, like 2018 or something, was this a very simple concept of within and between subjects, or within groups research, right? Which is psychology or any other form of research, kind of 101 basic stuff. But in our world of commercial UX research, we don't do it at all. At some point in the future, to be able to have version A, B, and C of the solution, some variants of what Deb is talking about, and to be able to then either have everybody see 3 different conditions, or 3 different groups see a single condition, and randomize for order and for order effect. All of this good stuff will come into play, or we'll have a tool like a multivariate testing machine to do that for you, or the AI is going to do it. But that's the next level of this industrial user research stuff that we need to get to at some point. It's just we're firing research teams, but just know that there are ways of finding this stuff out better than we do currently. It's just we're all being silenced and kept on the sides and all the other stuff. But we can do so much better research than we're doing currently. If you want to Google it, look at within and between subjects, or within and between participants or groups. It's in any psychology 101 or research methods book. It's first year of stuff. It's absolutely foundational things. And if you want to be a critical thinker, you want to be a more science literate, start reading up on that stuff. It's going to set you ahead of absolutely everybody. We probably 10 years ahead of the game right now in this marketplace, but get in there now. It's only going to make you a better person. This idea that we test an idea with one group is so stupid. There's better ways of learning stuff. It's just we're not there yet.
Yeah. Oh, so many thoughts. We don't have any other questions right now. So if anybody has a question, you will be next. No waiting. But we'll wait a few minutes, and if nobody has a question, we'll just wind down a little bit early with a reminder that I try to do this every Tuesday that I'm not traveling, and Dr. Nick joins us once a month, usually on the second Tuesday of the month. So that means we will find him again in this chair. I think it is April 9 at 11 p.m. Italy time. Of course, if you are in our community, our online community, which is free, deltacx.com/links, we've got Slack and Discord. In Discord, I now am using Unix timestamps for all the people who were not sure about time zones. We've now got Unix timestamps in our Discord community, so you will not mess up when stuff is. My small gift to you, and thanks to always to Ana Lucia for helping me improve the Discord's Discordability. I do prefer Discord over Slack, I have to say, but I think I'm in Slack more because of work. But I think Discord is better from a community perspective. Oh well.
Do you know what I'm just thinking? I haven't heard anybody use the word Unix in way too many years. It's funny that. Anyway.
Yeah, I don't talk about Unix ever. I don't know when I've last said that word, but I think that's what they call those, like the weird long number that represents a specific day and time, and then Discord recognizes it as a tag, and then what it does is if I put this long number in there, and it will show it to each person in their time zone because it does the auto translation.
Yeah, I think that it might be UTC, the Universal Time Code thing.
I don't even know because the page I'm using, it recognizes that I'm in Italy, so it lets me put things in my time, and then it generates this
Beautiful.
number, which represents probably the UTC time code, which I thought was in Unix somehow, but maybe I have that wrong. Anyway, if anybody has, we didn't see anybody on LinkedIn today. No questions from, I wonder if LinkedIn is broken today. But
I
if
put up a,
anybody,
I put up what I thought was a really great, positive, super helpful post on golden journeys, and it's got like 4 people engaging with it. So either I need to up my content game and rant more because that's what people like, or LinkedIn is kind of a bit poorly today.
yeah, LinkedIn is kind of ugly every day, and that's why I'm trying to recommend that people join our online communities because there we're helping and supporting each other without some of the noise and ugliness that is on LinkedIn. Dr. Nick excluded. You are the beauty of it, but there's a lot of ugly out there.
Yeah, there
LinkedIn
is.
can get depressing fast.
Yeah, yes, yes.
So come hang out in our communities. Sometimes we are sad and depressing, but in general, we're still trying to help each other out. LinkedIn, no, it seemed, I guess, did we go live? Yeah, I don't know,
Deb,
but yeah,
are your travels taking you anywhere near London in the coming months?
yes. I have like a 10-hour plane change in London on, I think, May 28th.
Oh, okay. I was going to suggest because I'm thinking about putting together a meetup, a physical meetup,
Ah.
because I haven't done one. I haven't organised one since long before the pandemic, and it would be lovely if you're in town to do like a joint meetup with you here. But I think a 10-hour layover is pushing it a bit, isn't it?
Not enough, and it might not be enough. Okay, I land at like 7:30 in the morning, and then I have an evening flight out. But during the tourist season, we're live. Everyone's listening to this, so hi everybody. During the
Hi.
tourist season, EasyJet flies direct from my airport to Gatwick. And it's not too expensive. So, thing one, Dr. Nick, get your butt over here. And thing two, if you want to arrange a London thing, I can probably get there not too expensively. So, I would say, run it by me, or especially if you and I want to plan a workshop thing where you do a half day of stuff and I do a half day of stuff. Or what do people think? If anyone's still watching live, is anybody interested in a Deb and Nick day of things? It probably wouldn't be free, but Deb and Nick Day of Things in London. I hope my internet's still working. We're still live, right?
And anyone who's London based, I'm going to do a meetup, whatever happens, just because I feel like physicality, being together, is a cool, great, lovely thing that we don't do as much as we used to. So I just want to kind of reinvigorate that. So if you're London based and got either topics or stuff you want to do at a meetup, or something I can talk to, or something we can discuss, just ping me on LinkedIn. Thanks.
Yeah, well, either my chat system died or we don't have anybody adding anything here. Let me just double check. Am I missing chat stuff?
It's just you and
Sometimes
me.
my chat system
Everybody's
dies. Yeah, oh, there's almost no delay here. Nope, nobody's chatting anything. Oh, Ana Lucia says, by the way, I saw Dr. Nick in the UXLX program. Are you participating in any conferences soon? Good question, Dr. Nick. Where will you be speaking?
Yes, I've got 2 things. I'm doing UX Lisbon, which is the 3rd week of May. I'm doing a half-day AI workshop on my AI-supported user research. I've got to be frank. I can't use my own prompts at the minute. So
It could be a how not to.
Yeah, listen, it provides a framework, and what's the important value about it is how to use AI safely and how I'm able to use it and all of my tricks. And that the weather in AI land can change, but this model doesn't. And so it's important you've got this model to be able to do this stuff. It's just that I wish I could like show you some magic, but unfortunately my tricks aren't working. But there's every chance they'll start working. It's just a bit random. So that's UX Lisbon. I'm there all week actually. So if anyone who's Lisbon based or just Portuguese coming to town, I'll be there. I'd love to meet people, do stuff.
Yeah, Ana Lucia is not
Second
far. When I was in Lisbon some months ago, I finally got to meet Ana Lucia in person.
Cool. I'll do meetups and whatever anybody else wants to do whilst I'm in town. So, yeah, just want to spread the love and knowledge, if you know what I mean. Secondly, the second week the fourth week of May, I'm in Prague for that week. There's a really massive conference there called Web Expo, and I'm doing I think a 30 or a 40-minute stage talk on all on signal to noise in the age of misinformation, and that's all about what does the future researcher need to look like when we're in this world of basically fairy tales and bullshit. How do we drive value? Where's validity? How do you generate validity? All of these great questions, which will help us defend from AI, designers, product managers, and anybody else.
Delicious. Yeah, then I guess I'm not seeing you on my plane change, and that's totally cool. But let's plan something else, because I can certainly fly in for it. But like I said, I expect you to come visit my house this year, Dr. Nick. And hi to Joanna Kleinschmidt, who is joining us on LinkedIn and says, enjoying listening to this chat. First, I've joined. Yeah, I've been YouTubing, is it 4.5 years almost now. So yeah, join on in. I had the absolute pleasure to work with Joanna in 2014. One of those people who you always wish you could work with again. So thank you, Joanna, for joining in. But Nick, it looks like we don't have any questions. So I would just say, let's you and I keep talking behind the scenes on planning a thing, and we'll figure it out from there. But for now, parting words, Dr. Nick.
Stay safe out there. It's so messy. I don't have anything positive to say. That keep your head down, do the good work, keep learning. Stay associated with good people like Debs, because the signal to noise ratio is out of control, and you need signal. So, and Debbie is signal. So stick around.
Thank you. And back at you. Yeah, I have unfollowed some people on LinkedIn recently, and their names you'd know. They're people who've been on the show, and I'm just like, I just think I'm done with this person. I'm really in this mode where I'm like, I have to, there's so much negativity and sadness in the world. I can't keep welcoming it into my space through some of these people on LinkedIn, and to me that has meant unfollowing and blocking even some well-known people, well-liked people, because I perceive what they post as not meeting our good old, where is it? I changed all my colors and now I can't find my own graphics anymore. No. Yes, meaningful, actionable, and helpful. We have to normalize curating our LinkedIn feeds. Yes, feel free to unfollow people, block people. If you don't like my stuff, unfollow me. Nobody said you have to follow this, or take a break from it. There's someone I like, but all they've been posting for some months is world news in a certain part of the world where nothing good is going on, and I can't see it. I can't, and that's me without neurodivergence. That's me without anxiety. That's me without any diagnosis or condition. This has to be a zillion times worse for someone who has anxiety, autism, ADHD, a combination of things. If I can't stand looking at these, and I don't know how anybody else is doing it.
Can Nick. I just add to that? I think Anna Lucia's point is huge, and I think it goes so far beyond LinkedIn feeds. I need to do that. That's such great advice. I need to curate my LinkedIn a bit more. I do tolerate stuff and kind of turn a blind eye to some naughties and things that don't make me feel good or just in the wrong direction. But really, I've started unsubscribing email from all kinds of marketing stuff and the stuff that's accumulated. I've started turning off notifications on my telephone, all kinds, you know what I mean? Start taking these bastards out, like unhooking them from your life. And that, I think through, I don't know, maybe it's just a kind of like a laziness or whatever. All this stuff, these hooks have crept up into us. And we've got all these, it's like death by 1,000 hooks of marketing messages. And we're just bombarded. I'm just trying to thin my life out, as Anna Lucia is suggesting. I think everybody needs to curate their digital lives as a priority.
For sure. I know on my phone, and I'm an Android energy vampires. Oh my God, I wish my husband were here. He's so what we do in the shadows. I'm an Android person, as people know, and I love the modes and routines setting where I could. So when I go into bed at night, I put on a certain mode, and I don't see my email, I don't see Slack, I don't see Discord, I don't see LinkedIn, I don't see Instagram. I literally cannot open these apps. They are temporarily disabled. I don't see notifications from them. I can't open them. And this just makes me happy, so I can wind down and go to bed. I watch my YouTube videos at night, which I think a lot of people know I mostly watch funny, relaxing, not upsetting stuff. And that's important because everything around us is an energy vampire. Everything around us wants a piece of our energy and our headspace and our anger. And it's tough. Everybody, put on your oxygen mask first.
Yeah, I think they're attentional. For me, obviously, as an ADHD guy, they're attentional vampires, right? They're distractional. They're distractors. And every time something goes ping, I have enough of a hard time just following my own thoughts through in a silent room, if you know what I mean. So it's an absolute nightmare when anything's getting in the way of that. Anything, unless it's fractal noise. But so, yeah. And I also understand that everybody's got a different agenda. And most of these messages have got an ulterior motive to them.
Sorry, the gong is to remind us we have all 3 minutes left.
Sorry.
Listen, everything's got an ulterior motive. I didn't set that off. I have it on an auto thing. That wasn't me trying to shut you up. That was, I have a gong that goes off 3 minutes before the end of the show to remind us to wrap up. But that wasn't, look, ma, no hands. I didn't do that.
No, that's good. I'm much less hurt, much less wounded. But don't tell my wife that there's a gong, or she'll literally go and buy one to shut me up.
I can press I can press the gong button and I can set it off, because this is where I control the show, so I can hit the gong button and set it off, but I did not do that. I have it on an auto timer to remind us to wrap up. But put on your own oxygen mask first, everybody. I think that's the most important thing, and just remember, you never know what's going on for someone else. And make no assumptions about what anybody else is or isn't going through or dealing with or struggling with or whatever. That's where the true empathy is, empathy. So,
if for whatever reason that stuff doesn't come naturally to you, you can develop the feelings of empathy by just reverse a situation in almost any situation. If you can reverse it, you'll start to put yourself in their shoes. And that's real empathy, if you know what I mean. They are human beings exactly like you, despite the fact they might look or sound or behave differently. They've got very similar needs. And one of the things I learned long time ago is that what you see on the outside is clearly not what's going on the inside. And then the internet and then social media happened and made it all a lot heavier. So just understand that what you see is not usually true, and people are portraying an image that they want you to see instead of what's actually happening. What's actually happening is something that you can relate to and understand.
Yeah. Pierre says, I'm wondering why Dr. Fine decided to leave the Rosenfeld conference. I'm not sure. I used to love their content, but seeing they're doing webinars with Teresa Torres, that's disappointing. Yeah, I agree. I fell out of love with Rosenfeld a few years ago when I saw him do some things that I found unacceptable. And I think all of his genuine conversations and debates are just not meaningful, actionable, or helpful. And I'm not sure there is a meaningful conversation or genuine conversation with Teresa Torres at this point. I know that's a sticky opinion, but that's how I feel. Nick, I recognize you may or may not be comfortable talking about why you walked from the Rosenfeld conference. So do you want to say anything about that? Because if not, I have a fresh topic.
Yeah, no, you know what? I don't want to get into that waters. I don't think it's fair to me or to Rosenfeld or to the folks there. We had just a kind of a difference of approach. That's all, and it was just me sticking to my principles and my integrity, if you know what I mean. Just different strokes for different folks. We weren't aligned in the same direction. They're good people. we just have different views on stuff. So there's no criticism or negativity kind of from me, but it wasn't something that was going to work out well for either of us, I don't think.
You're much more generous than I would be. So well done. Well played, Nick. Different topic I want to bring up really quickly, and then I know we've got to go. Nick, I was thinking about you a few weeks ago when a YouTuber that I follow who has 1.13 million subscribers, and she has 174,000 subscribers on Instagram, she decided to put together an in-person event. You know, you and I are always talking about, let's do a workshop, let's do this, can we get people to a thing? She put together an in-person event in Milan. So she's Italian, her YouTube channel's in Italian. This is Italians. For those of you familiar with some of the things, this is the only ASMR person I follow, because I generally don't see myself as an ASMR person, but she's just amazing. So she put together an in-person event, a 3-hour event in Milan, 1 hour of live ASMR where everybody got silent disco headphones, and a 2-hour meet and greet with her where she served some snacks. She charged 80 euros, which is what, 70 pounds, 65 pounds? For a 3-hour event. She opened up 40 tickets. 40 tickets. It took her 3 days to sell them.
Why 40 tickets?
She wanted to try something small and intimate and friendly and just do a little, try an experiment doing live ASMR and then a 2-hour meet and greet and snacks with some fans. It was an experiment, and she was celebrating that she put out her 1,000th YouTube video. And so when you and I talk about, we can't get people to sign up for our things and when I saw that this person who should have sold 40 tickets in about -7 seconds took 3 days to sell 40 tickets at 80 euros with 1.13 million subscribers and 100.
That's the thing.
And so I go, look, I have 40,000 followers on LinkedIn, but that to me is the interesting thing, is like, I think it's a reflection of the way people are choosing to spend their time and what money they do or don't have, because her price wasn't unfair. The event wasn't unattractive. It was an attractive sound. If I'd been near it, I would have gone it just to check it out and see what her experiment looked like. But 3 days to sell 40 tickets to an audience of 1 million people.
I will talk like this if you'd like. I'll put my ASMR voice on, which is all mouthy noises and lovely. Anyway,
you're not as good as she is. I'm so sorry. She's magical. I can only say she's magical.
Yeah, look. What I would read into that is what the latter part of what you were saying. There is, I think, the younger generations, or another way of putting it is there's this kind of commercial imperative that's being baked into human behavior in ways that has never really happened before. People live to buy, live to shop in ways that we or our generations didn't. And I think, basically, to cut a long story short, you and I and everybody else, it's about monetizing and it's about productizing, right? And that's what this lady has done, is productized an ASMR experience, but didn't really leverage her 1.3 million followers to
I don't know what happened there. I mean, she's got sponsors. She's got all the stuff. She clearly is.
Yeah, but what she's probably doing is misreading her audience completely. She's got 1.38 globally who like sitting there listening to her making noises through her, through headphones or speakers. Actually going somewhere to have a live event is a very different experience. So for me, I listen to ASMR type stuff in terms of fractal noise because it's work noise for me. I'm not going to go watch a live performance of that shit ever. And I'm certainly not going to go pay for it. Right?
That's another question.
That's a huge miscalculation.
But that's another question, is like when we offer our workshops and some of our things and we're expecting to be paid, are we misreading some of our audiences because sometimes we're not seeing the turnout that we've expected? And so to me, it was just an interesting, there isn't like a clear takeaway or a clear action item. It was just it just made me think of you because of some of the times you and I have brainstormed different types of events and different prices of events. And here I thought this woman could easily sell these things in 30 seconds.
Yeah, but do you know what? I've got a couple of things I know. If I was to name a couple of spicy and controversial like workshops, that we could sell them out in minutes. Do you know what I'm saying? And that's what everybody else is doing. But I have a little bit more integrity than that. Or I don't want to put that kind of information into the public arena just yet,
Right.
because of the blaggers. For sure, we'll come up with something. What this ASMR lady, is not really understanding are the needs of her audience, right? The need to soothe and to get that kind of cerebral response or whatever you get from, or the serotonin response from ASMR, is not a travel and go see it kind of thing. Or if it is,
Right.
it's a really elite 40 kind of person over 3 days kind of struggle.
It's 3 hours. Yeah.
Right? I mean, so if I'm her, I'm selling ASMR recordings so that I can enjoy her ASMRness in my own headspace whenever I want.
Look, she's great.
I'm on
I love her.
Spotify.
I love I don't love all of her videos. I love a lot of her videos, and yeah, I mean, based on the comments that I've read under her videos, people are watching it to relax. They're watching it to sleep. They're watching it to deal with anxiety, and that means those might be people who don't want to go into public, or it might not make sense to take a train to Milan to do something that is extremely relaxing or almost otherworldly, and then have to get on a train and go back home somewhere.
Yeah. I mean, look, the ASMR that I use are things like rainfall, right, or storms. Now, when I'm camping and the sound of rain on a tarpaulin is the greatest thing in the world, because I am getting that live performance. But the point being is I get to enjoy that indoors at night too, without having to go outside and get wet or all of that stuff. And it's the same principle with this lady. In order for you to get into that mind state of calm and peaceful, or to get the soothing that ASMR offers, it's in your context, not theirs. Otherwise, the context is a confounding variable.
And I found that when I tried to run more live workshops and live events and my own conference in this stuff, I had a lot of people say to me, why should I pay to see that? I can just see it on YouTube when I want it. I'll see what I want, when I want, in the environment in which I want. Why would I want to have to be there at a certain time or go to a certain place? And so that's been what I've been hearing for a while. Ana Lucia says, rainy mood is the best.
Can I just say that the millennials were the first generation to become really excellent digital marketeers, and the Zs and everybody else following are just getting better and better and better at it. So by taking a thing like an ASMR meet and greet or whatever it is, they're able to take something which is probably not a great idea and still sell it, right? Because there's enough people out there with enough money and enough commercial imperative that all you've got to do is hang your hooks out there and something is going to bite. And that's the world we're in, unfortunately, It's kind of crazy.
Look, it's an interesting experiment. She clearly didn't do it for the money because they all got swag bags and food and she had to rent a place. And by the time she was done, I don't think she made money from it. I think it was just an interesting experiment to see if people would come live to something like that. And she got 40, but and it took her 3 days to sell it. So it just made me very curious because I keep thinking like, oh, if only I had more people in my sphere, I would be able to sell more of this stuff. And then it's like, a woman with 1.13 million subscribers could barely sell 40 things.
Yeah.
And again, it seemed like a good deal.
Yeah. She's selling apples to people who want to buy bananas.
Maybe, but thanks for thinking it out with me. It just really made me think of you in some of the chats we've had. But I'm running late. My workday started 9 minutes ago. I got to feed my dogs. Dr. Nick, thank you again for giving us part of your day and your genius to answer the questions. I'm going to fireball us out of here, and we'll see you in a few weeks. And everybody else, I hope to see you tomorrow at our next webinar. Check it out, cxcc.to/events for all the stuff I have coming up. Thanks and bye.